And welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing so well. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas time and I guess a wonderful new year, because by the time this video goes up it will probably be January. Currently it is the 28th? The 28th? I actually need to check. It's the 29th. It's currently the 29th of December and we're in that weird week where it doesn't feel like Christmas anymore, it doesn't feel like New Year anymore. We're just in that kind of weird non-time. And usually this time of year for me is really frustrating because I am somebody who likes to plan and think about the future and start new things. And there's this weird feeling in this week between Christmas and New Year that I always get, that I don't think I'm alone in, that kind of feels like you don't want to start anything new until the 1st of January. However, this year has of course been a little bit different because I am currently 37 weeks pregnant and this baby could arrive any day now. And so that has definitely given me a slightly different attitude and outlook on time at the moment. I am making the most of every little bit of time I have before I go into labour and this baby arrives, and that is why I wanted to do this video. So I'm going to be packing this video full of things because I don't know how soon I will be able to make other content. And so instead of doing lots of little videos, I am just gonna put all of the content together in this one video, give you a big long video of book shopping, Christmas book haul, organising, my favourite books of the year, just all of the things that I would normally separate into separate videos throughout January, I'm going to put together in this video. And I'll also timestamp everything in the video so that if you're just interested in my favourite books of the year, you can just watch that section. If you're just interested in the book haul, you can watch that, etc. Definitely go and grab yourself a comforting warm drink and get cozy because it's going to be probably a very long video. So let's talk about my favourite books of 2023. I've read a total of 26, but will have read 27 books in 2023, and so it's a much smaller amount than I would normally read, but I have definitely found some new favourite books within that. I feel like I need to sort these blinds out. I've just closed the blinds because I feel like that was letting way too much light in behind my face. So yes, I have definitely found some new favourite books this year, and so I'm going to talk about the best 5 of the year that I've read. So the top 20-ish% of the books. Here's my little pile, and it's quite a varied selection of books actually. I feel like it's always a bit varied, my favourite books of the year. But this feels particularly varied. The first book on the list is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. And this is the only one on the list that I didn't give 5 stars to. I think I gave it a 4.5 stars. But the more that I've kind of sat with it and thought about it and reflected on it, I feel like it probably was a 5-star read for me. My overall enjoyment of this book was so big that I actually bought copies of this book for people for Christmas, and always rave and talk about this book to people. So it had to make it to my favourites. I've talked about this book many times, but it is a cozy fantasy story about a Cambridge professor named Emily Wilde, and in this version of our reality, fairies exist, and it is commonly believed that they exist, and it's actually a field of academic study to study the fae. And we follow this professor as she goes out in search of the last fairy that she needs to find and study in order to finish her encyclopedia of fairies. It's a really wholesome and cozy story with just a little hint of a darker undertone, and it's also perfect for winter and cold days, and it's just a very cozy story. It's set in a cold place. I can't remember where it is, but in this really cold place, in a cabin, there's a dog, there's romance and friendships and academic rivalries, and it's just a great story. I really enjoyed this one. The second book that made it to my favourites this year was, I think this was probably my first 5-star read of the year, and that is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. This is a collection of letters that was written between Helene Hanff, who was a woman in America, and a guy called Frank Dole, who worked in a secondhand bookshop. And it's just this series of letters and interactions between these two characters who, I say characters, they are real people. These are actual letters that were published between these two people who never actually meet in person, but seem to have this bond despite their, huge differences in life and the huge differences in personality. But they bond in these letters through their love of books. I feel like if you love books and you love reading, then this is a book that you should definitely pick up. These aren't really in order of when I read them, but I'm just gonna go through the pile anyway. The next one is probably my absolute favourite book that I read in 2023, and potentially my favourite book of all time. Potentially. I've only read it once, so I feel a little bit like I can't say that a book is my favourite book of all time until I've read it at least a couple of times. But that is, of course, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I've talked about this book so many times in so many videos this past year, and I also did a whole reading vlog video of just reading this book for the first time. Knowing now how much I adore this story, I love that I have that memory to look back on of my journey of reading this book for the first time. So if you want to know all of my thoughts, then definitely watch that video. But in short, this is a classic tale of a young woman who goes through some pretty awful things in her childhood, ends up becoming a governess for Mr. Rochester in her kind of older teens, young adulthood. It is so good. There are so many themes that are just woven together so beautifully in this book. The writing style is just my favourite thing that I have ever read, and I adore this story. It will absolutely be one that I read many times in my life. And then along the theme of classics, another classic I read this year that had been on my to-read list for years and years, and I finally picked it up this year, was North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I loved this book so much. I adore the TV miniseries. I've watched it so many times that I think it put me off reading the book because I felt like I knew the story so well that I wasn't going to enjoy reading the story. I was so wrong. This book is just amazing. It is so readable. It is so engrossing, and even though it's a slow story and it's not a fast-paced page turner by any means, it's slow, it's very thematic, it's it takes its time to tell the story and to unravel the romantic plotline as well. But to me, that just makes this even more beautiful, and the extra bits you get from reading this book that you wouldn't get from watching the adaptation make it so worth it as well. I feel like there's so many really important themes that just got missed by the TV adaptation that really are so important in the story, and I just feel like it added so much to actually read the book. So really loved this. It was such a good, like a surprisingly good read, and I gave this 5 stars as well. And then the final book on the list is another fantasy read, and that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And I think maybe 2 Rebecca Ross books were on my top books of last year. I can't remember. Definitely she did feature at least once. Rebecca Ross is absolutely my favourite fantasy author that I've discovered over the last couple of years, and I absolutely love her writing and her stories. This is a rivals to lovers romantasy story about these 2 opposing journalists who they live in this fantasy world where there is a war going on, and it's very kind of World War I feeling in terms of the time period and the way, like the kind of descriptions of writing on typewriters, and just the atmosphere feels very of that time period. But it is a fantasy story. It's a war between these opposing gods, and we follow these 2 journalists who are trying to document this war, and it's so good. There's magical typewriters and wardrobes and slow build romance and just the most beautiful atmosphere that is set up in this story. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book, and I really love this. Can't wait to read the sequel, which by the time I'm recording this video is already out in America, but it's not out here in the UK. So I'm excited to read that when it comes out. So those are all of my favourite books that I read this year, and I think I am now going to set up my reading journal for the next year. So each year I like to keep track of the books that I read, and I like to do that on Goodreads, but I also like to do it on in a physical notebook. I really like writing physically my thoughts on the books that I read. And I've done that for the last couple of years, just in a cheap notebook that I've picked up. But my parents bought me an actual reading journal this year, which is very exciting. And it has sections for all sorts of things. It's got a book tracker, it's got a book lending tracker, so you can write down the books that you lend out, which over the last year I have actually been lending out a lot more books from my personal library. And so it actually will be quite nice to keep track, because there's definitely some books that are missing on my shelves at the moment that other people have, and I really don't keep track of them. The only thing is that it only has space to review 32 books. Normally I set my goal at about 50 books, but this past year I set it at 30, and I think if I finish the book that I'm currently reading, I will have only read 27 books this year, so just under that 30 goal. And I did that this year partially because I wanted to focus on reading more classics and longer books and books that were going to take a bit more time, which I did. And I think it's going to be the same this year. Honestly, I don't think that 50 is going to be a realistic goal. It might happen, but I am not kind of expecting that of myself. And so actually, in many ways, having this reading journal and only having 32 spaces to fill kind of gives me my reading goal for the next year. Because if I can read 32, then I'll have read more than this year, and I'll still be, to me, 30 books is like a good amount in a year. I think I might also in this video set up this reading journal and write a little bit of a TBR and just kind of get ready for the new year. But yes, I'm really excited to use this year and have a proper reading journal. But first of all, of course, we need a hot drink, and I'm still very much in the festive mood, and I think I might have a hot chocolate. Hot chocolate is acquired. I got this very cringy but really cute mum Christmas mug this year at Christmas. Me and Johnny have matching mum and dad ones, but I am still going to keep the Christmas mug going strong for a little while longer because it is still December for me. Something that I get every year for Christmas that is literally my favourite thing, I'm actually addicted to them, is a Terry's chocolate orange. I always get one every year for Christmas because my family know I am actually addicted to Terry's chocolate orange. Like, I could sit and eat the whole thing in one go and love it, but I'm trying to eat like 1 or 2 segments at a time to make it last. So I'm gonna have a couple of these, drink my hot chocolate and start my 2024 reading journal. So the first section to fill out is an about me page, and I really like this because I feel like this is a really nice thing to track each year and see how it changes. So obviously my name, my favourite book, which currently I would say is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, which is definitely different to what the answer would have been if I had to fill this out last year. So that's really cool. I like that I can track that each year, see if it's changed. Then level of reading obsession, I've had to put the top one because I mean, I literally have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to talking about my obsession with books. And then you're supposed to put a photo and a return thing, but I'm not going to fill that out. And then favourite childhood book, I mean, I think this is never going to actually change, but I've just put the Chronicles of Narnia because that is always the series that they're the books that I think about when I think about loving reading as a child. And then favourite author is Kazuo Ishiguro. Again, I feel like that's only been the case for the last maybe 2 years. So I like that might change in the future as well. Favourite genre, I've put fantasy and classics because I feel like they kind of tie for my favourite genres. And then favourite place to read is, of course, home. So the next sections to fill out are my reading wish list. Okay, so this will be my TBR, I guess. So this will be a fun thing to fill out. So I've started filling out the wish list section. I have a little list on my phone of books that I want to buy in 2024. It's not very long so far, but I need to build it up. I've already ticked Cruel Prince by Holly Black because I actually have downloaded that on my Kindle and it's my current read, so I've already bought that. And then I'm going to sort of add to this list as I go, but then also fill it out in here. I really like this actually because I definitely want to read books sometimes and then completely forget that I want to read them, and then I lose the note in my phone. But there's a few pages actually, so I can write quite a few TBR. I feel like there's more sections for my wish list than there are for actual books that I've read this year, which is so funny. Clearly whoever wrote this journal knows readers very well. So the books that I've got in here so far are Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, which is the sequel to Divine Rivals. A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which is the last book in that trilogy. That's been out for a little while, but I have just been slow in actually finishing that series. Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett, which again is a sequel to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Basically a lot of like finishing or carrying on with series. Then I've got John Mark Comer here because he's coming out with a new book in January and I can't remember what the name of the book is, so I've just put his name to remind me that he's coming out with a book. And then I've also put Daphne du Maurier here because I don't have a specific book of hers that I want to read, but I do want to read more of her books in this year. And then, so after the wish list, what do we have? Oh, a borrowing tracker. Oh, I should actually fill this out. So I'm currently lending out, can I remember? I know that I'm lending out Howl's Moving Castle. And I am lending that. I think there are probably others, but there definitely are others, but that's what I can remember right now. So then there's a page of journaling prompts and then an index. So I always like doing these just to give a little overview of all the books, and it goes up to 32, and then to start reviewing them. So that's as much as I can really fill out for now, other than adding to my wish list over the next few days. And then we shall see what the first book is that I read. I don't know quite how sensible it is to sit on this with a cup of tea, but we're gonna try. I feel like this ball has deflated because it's definitely not as firm as it should be. I'm currently sat on my birthing ball because it is the most comfortable thing to sit on right now. But if it looks like I'm bouncing up and down whilst filming this, that's why. So a few days have passed since I recorded the last clips, and I had to wait a few days because I wanted to finish this video by filming a Christmas book haul and showing you all of the books that I got for Christmas. And I was still waiting for a couple of the books to arrive in the post. So the last one arrived yesterday. So I can finally show you all of the books that I received or bought with Christmas money. Last week's video was a £5 book challenge where I spent £5 of Christmas money that I was given and tried to buy as many books as I could. So there are an additional 4 books in this haul that I'm not going to show in this video because I've already shown them and talked all about them. So I'll link that video somewhere on the screen if you want to go and see those either before or after watching this video. But yes, so there are 4 extras that I have also got in this collective haul. But today I'm going to show you the ones that I was specifically given by people, and then also new books that I bought with Christmas money. So let's start with the ones that were bought for me. And the first one is probably my favourite, and that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett in the Chiltern edition, and I absolutely adore these editions of classics. I don't own any. They're the kind of books that I look at in bookshops and admire from afar, but never actually buy. But this one is so beautiful. So this is from my parents, and they know how much I love The Secret Garden as a story, and I only really have like a cheap paperback copy from when I was a child that I've just reread and reread over the years. So now I have a really beautiful edition, and this is of course a childhood classic about a secret garden, and I don't feel like I need to say anything more than that. So this was such a beautiful gift. So that's the first book that I was given. The second book that I was bought was from Johnny's parents, and that's a non-fiction book actually. I didn't really get any non-fiction books this year. This is the only one, and that is Habits of the Household by Justin Whitmel Early, I think. And this, it looks like it's about building habits in the household and building habits for family, and obviously with a baby on the way and new family life kind of beginning. Now I feel like this will be a really interesting and timely read for thinking about raising children and building routines early and having kind of healthy family routines. And I think this is also specifically about Christian families and Christian habits, so how to build meaningful Christian family rhythms into your life. So I'm very interested to read this one as well. And then finally, the last book that was specifically bought for me was from my best friend, who we decided this year to, for Christmas, instead of buying each other a random present, we decided that we would give each other a book for Christmas, and I think that's something we're gonna do going forward as well. So we just went and bought each other a book, and the book that she bought for me is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which is a huge book. I have seen this book around a lot, and I've seen lots of people talk about it in videos, but it's never been one that I've actually looked into or researched or really know anything about. But it looks really, really good. It looks like a very epic fantasy, and I know a lot of people really love this author and really love this book series as well. I think there's 2 books out at the moment. I don't know if there's more being written. There isn't really much of a synopsis on the back of the book. It just says, a world divided, a queendom without an heir, an ancient enemy awakens. Sounds like an epic political fantasy series, so I am definitely without one of those at the moment, and I think this would be a nice one to kind of chip away at slowly throughout the year. And then the next 3 books are books that I bought. I didn't really record much when I went to Waterstones because I actually didn't buy anything when I was there, and I was more just sort of going around and getting some ideas. And then when I got home, I ordered some books after having looked around the shop and done a bit of research. So I was waiting for those books to arrive, and I'm so excited for all 3 of these books. Seems to be a little bit of a tradition now, but each Christmas time over the last 3 years, I have bought each book in this series, even though they come out in the autumn. For some reason, I've just had a tradition where I've bought them at Christmas time. And so the book that I picked up was A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which is, of course, the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. And I have really loved these books. I've given the first 2 5 stars. In fact, I think I gave the first one a 5-star and the second one, did I give the second one a 5 stars? Either 5 stars or like 4.5 stars. They were both really high for me. Stephanie Garber writes romance so well and her stories are just so addictive to me. I can just devour them in a day. And so I'm really, really excited to finish this series. The second book that I picked up was The Snow Child by Owen Ivy. I think that's how you pronounce the name. This book was on my winter book guide video that I put out just before Christmas. And it was one of the books that had been recommended to me as a great wintry read. But I'd never gotten around to picking it up and buying it before Christmas. However, when I saw this book, it reminded me of how much I wanted to actually read it. And when I was in the bookshop, I started reading the first chapter and I was so engrossed, and the writing style is so beautiful. I feel like this is going to be one of those books that I just know will become a new favourite. And the final book that I picked up, I'm actually already reading and absolutely loving, and that is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. This is her debut novel. This book is so quirky and unique, but in the best way. It's basically Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but instead of a reclusive chocolate maker, we have a reclusive children's author who invites all these people to his home to compete for this prize. And so far it is just so wholesome and emotional and lovely and quirky, and I'm loving this so much so far. So that is my little Christmas book stack. I'm so grateful to everyone who bought me books or gave me money to buy books this year. It's definitely one of my favourite things at Christmas and my birthday, when I get to just go and buy lots of books and accumulate lots of books that I really want to read. So that is everything for this big 2024 check-in video. I don't know what I'm going to call this video. 2024 reset? I don't know what I'm going to call this video, but that's it for this big bumper video. I hope that you enjoyed watching, and I would love to know in the comments what, first of all, your favourite book of 2023 was. Secondly, what is the book you're most excited to read for 2024? And finally, what was the best bookish gift you got for Christmas, if you got a bookish gift this year? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in this world, and I'll see you very soon with another video.